Hi, this is John Arnett, and for the next few minutes I am going to be talking about the Kamakura period. Before I do need to apologize for any background noise. I have 3 dogs that wanted to join into the video, but they didn't know a whole lot about Kamakura period itself, so I had to tell them no, and they're a little angry about that. But anyways, the Kamakura period went from about 1185 when they moved the capital city of Japan to Kamakura itself until 1333 when it was moved away. During this period, some prominent features of it were the rising strength of the samurai. We can see this as they became more and more prominent within the government force until they actually became the government force of the country itself, making the decisions. The court, which was weakening at the time, still maintained very royal connections, very prestigious outlook, but they lost a lot of the arts and literature of the time, which is different from the previous periods, and it shifted more towards a samurai storytelling or even a Buddhist way of storytelling. Buddhism was another major key feature during this time as it became more commonplace. We can see this in the art and literature. It became a lot more for a common person, not just a court religion, until it actually did become the official religion of Japan. We can see this in Amida Buddhism itself, or the Celestial Buddha. It's the principal Buddha for Pure Land sect, which is the guide to salvation and assurance of rebirth into the Pure Land itself. It's known as the Everlasting Light. Its direct translation is Infinite Light, and it's the art form surrounding the Buddhist ways that helps give for a greater experience in Buddhism. Central to the art and literature, we can see a lot of this for Amida Buddhism because it has very strong overtones within the stories that are told, within the literature, within the writings, and there's a lot of direct references straight to it itself. A lot of tales start directing towards Mappo, which is the latter day of the law. It's known as the degenerative age, which lasts for about 10,000 years. It is the final of the 3 ages of Buddhism. It is preceded by the middle day of the law in reference to the Shakyamuni Buddha, who died about 400 BC. It is supposed to occur about 2,000 years after his death, which would put it about 1680. Doesn't quite line up correctly, but there's a lot of foreshadowing in the stories. There's a lot of anxiety about the coming age itself due to it being the degenerative age and filled with suffering. This can be very prominently seen in the author Kama no Chomei. He was born around 1153 and he lived until 1216. He was a very prominent political figure within his shrine, and he remained as such until he got passed over for promotion. This passover made him, I wouldn't say vengeful, but he decided to look more about himself and his spirituality rather than becoming a political figure. He secluded himself away, eventually moving to a mountainside in a hut over by a river, where he started writing his literature in a very reclusive fashion. You can see in his tales, An Account from My Hut, that it's very, very isolated. It's very little contact. It's just going over his life and some of the disasters he saw leading up to this latter day of the law. Some of these disasters really focused on the famines that struck the city, the fires that consumed major portions of the city, earthquakes that tore down buildings, war, famine, like I said, disease, post-war problems, people coming back from the war, people not coming back from the war, and the problems that came with interhuman connections, really. Whether some person was more concerned about the greed, about the possessions that they lost during the fire, or if they focused more on the human survivors, the human death, the loss, and all of that was very prominent in his writings and showed how people were losing that connection, or how others that were maybe of the poorer class still maintained their connection to the Buddhist ways of humility. He was very religious, even though he did state that he finally found peace within himself when he finally did move away from the city, got away from the possessions, away from the greed, and focused more on his meditations and his lifestyle. Again, this is John Arnett, and this is a very, very brief overview of a very long period. I'd recommend looking into it more if it interests you, and we'll see you next time. Have a great week.